The day started like any other in Oakwood Heights. I kissed my wife goodbye, helped my 10-year-old son Ethan pack his lunch, and watched from our front porch as he walked to the bus stop at the end of our cul-de-sac. We'd only moved into the neighborhood 3 months ago, and while the strict HOA had some ridiculous rules, we were adjusting well. What I didn't expect was for my son to become the target of our HOA president's latest power trip. I was sipping my coffee when my phone rang. It was Ethan. "Dad," he said, his voice trembling slightly. "There's a lady at the bus stop yelling at me about my backpack. She says it violates HOA rules and I can't wait here anymore." I could hear a shrill voice in the background demanding that Ethan put me on speaker. "I'll be right there," I told him, keeping my tone calm despite the anger building inside me. I quickly grabbed my keys, but decided against taking my department vehicle. Sometimes it's better not to lead with your position. As I approached the bus stop, I saw a middle-aged woman with meticulously highlighted blonde hair styled in the classic "Can I speak to the manager?" cut, standing over my son. She wore designer athleisure wear and was gesturing wildly at Ethan's Marvel superhero backpack. It was the backpack I'd given him for his birthday last month, and the way he clutched it now, I could tell he was protecting more than just his school supplies. "Excuse me," I said, my voice firm but controlled as I'd learned through years of police training. "Is there a problem here?" The woman spun around, her face twisted in righteous indignation. "Yes, there absolutely is a problem," she said, her voice dripping with condescension. "I'm Karen Whitfield, president of the Oakwood Heights Homeowners Association, and your son is in clear violation of our community aesthetic guidelines." I placed a reassuring hand on Ethan's shoulder. "What exactly is the violation?" I asked, genuinely curious about what rule a child's backpack could possibly be breaking. Karen pulled out her phone and aggressively scrolled through what I assumed was the HOA handbook. "Section 12, paragraph 3, she said with smug satisfaction. "All items visible from community property must conform to the neighborhood color palette of earth tones and neutrals. This monstrosity is bright red and blue." I stared at her in disbelief. "You're telling me that my son's backpack, which he uses to carry his school books, violates HOA rules because it's colorful?" Karen crossed her arms and lifted her chin. "Rules are rules. The bus stop is on HOA property, and we have standards to maintain. If we let one child bring a garish backpack, soon we'll have chaos. Property values will plummet." Taking a deep breath, I explained as patiently as I could, "Ms. Whitfield, my son is a child waiting for his school bus. His backpack is not a permanent fixture in the neighborhood. This seems like an overreach of HOA authority." Karen's face flushed red. "Don't you lecture me about HOA authority," she snapped. "I've been president for 6 years, and I know every bylaw by heart. Your son needs to leave this bus stop immediately, or I'll call security." I couldn't help but chuckle at that. Security? For a child's backpack? Ethan looked up at me, confusion and worry in his eyes. "It's okay, buddy," I assured him. "You're not doing anything wrong." The school bus appeared at the end of the street, and I gestured for Ethan to get ready. Karen stepped between my son and the curb. "He's not getting on that bus from this stop," she said, her tone threatening. "Not with that backpack. Those are the rules." That's when I decided it was time to identify myself. "Ms. Whitfield, I'm not only Ethan's father, I'm Chief Jackson Reynolds of the Oakwood Police Department. You're currently preventing a minor from accessing public school transportation, which could be considered obstruction." Karen's eyes widened for a split second before narrowing again. "Being police chief doesn't exempt you from following HOA rules," she said, though I detected a slight waver in her voice. The bus pulled up, doors opening with a hydraulic hiss. "Go ahead, Ethan," I said, gently guiding him around Karen. She grabbed my arm, her acrylic nails digging into my skin. "We're not done here," she hissed. I carefully removed her hand. "Please don't put your hands on me again," I said, my voice quiet but firm. Ethan looked back nervously as he boarded the bus. I gave him a reassuring nod before the doors closed and the bus pulled away. "You've just made a serious enemy," Karen said, jabbing a finger toward my chest without actually touching me. "I'm calling an emergency HOA meeting tonight. We'll see how well your family fits in this neighborhood when you're facing daily fines. I maintained my professional demeanor. Ms. Whitfield, I'd like to see the specific bylaw that gives the HOA authority over children's school supplies. Could you show me where that's outlined in the covenant? Karen's confidence faltered momentarily. It falls under the aesthetic guidelines, she insisted. As HOA president, I have discretionary power to interpret those guidelines. I nodded thoughtfully. I see. Well, I look forward to discussing this interpretation at the meeting tonight. I'll bring the county code enforcement officer as my guest, if that's permitted. They've been wanting to review some of our HOA regulations for compliance with state law. The mention of county oversight made Karen's eye twitch slightly. Just keep your son and his eyesore of a backpack away from community property, she said before turning on her heel and marching toward her immaculately landscaped home across the street. I stood there for a moment, watching her retreat, and decided the situation required more than just passive resistance. That afternoon, I made some calls. First to our family attorney, then to several neighbors who had mentioned their own run-ins with Karen's overzealous enforcement. By evening, I had a clear picture of a pattern of harassment and possibly illegal overreach of HOA authority. The emergency meeting was scheduled for 7 p.m. at the community clubhouse, and I arrived early, in uniform. It wasn't how I typically attended neighborhood meetings, but sometimes a visual reminder of one's position helps maintain order. Karen was already there, surrounded by her loyal faction of the board. She faltered mid-sentence when she saw me enter in full chief's uniform. "Good evening," I said pleasantly to the room, nodding at familiar faces. "I understand we're here to discuss backpack regulations." A few neighbors chuckled, which only seemed to irritate Karen further. "This isn't a joke, Chief Reynolds," she said, emphasizing my title sarcastically. "This is about maintaining community standards." The meeting began with Karen presenting her case against the visual pollution of non-conforming items in community spaces. She pulled up a slideshow that included a zoomed-in photo of Ethan's backpack, which she must have taken that morning. "This is exactly the kind of eyesore that diminishes our property values," she declared. When she finished, she looked at me expectantly, clearly anticipating an apology. Instead, I stood and addressed the room calmly. "Thank you, Ms. Whitfield, for bringing this matter to everyone's attention. Before I respond to the backpack issue, I'd like to address a more pressing concern." I pulled out a folder. "This morning, Ms. Whitfield physically prevented my 10-year-old son from accessing his school bus. She grabbed his arm and blocked his path. I have statements from 2 witnesses who observed this from their homes." The room fell silent. When I intervened, I continued. Ms. Whitfield grabbed my arm as well, leaving these marks. I showed the faint red indentations her nails had left. Under state law, this constitutes simple assault, especially when directed at a minor. Additionally, preventing a child from accessing school transportation violates educational access statutes. Karen shot to her feet, her face contorted with rage. "That's absurd. I was enforcing HOA rules." The other board members exchanged uncomfortable glances. I remained composed. "Ms. Whitfield, no HOA rule supersedes state law or grants you the authority to physically detain residents, especially children. Furthermore, I've reviewed our covenant in detail, and there is no provision regulating temporary items like backpacks, nor does the color palette requirement extend to personal belongings." I turned to address the entire room. "I'm not here to press charges at this time, though I legally could. I'm here as a concerned resident and parent who believes our HOA has strayed from its proper function. I've taken the liberty of inviting County Inspector Davis, who is prepared to conduct a full compliance review of our HOA practices and bylaws." Karen's face drained of color as a serious-looking woman in a county blazer stood up from the back row. "This is outrageous," Karen spluttered. "You can't bring in outside authorities without board approval." Inspector Davis stepped forward. "Actually, Ms. Whitfield, any resident can request a compliance review. And based on preliminary examination, I've identified several concerning patterns in enforcement that may constitute harassment and selective application of regulations." What happened next was something I hadn't anticipated but probably should have. Karen completely lost her composure. "This is a coup," she shrieked, pointing at me. He's using his position to intimidate me. In her rage, she picked up her heavy binder of HOA regulations and threw it directly at me. I sidestepped easily, but the binder hit Inspector Davis squarely in the shoulder. The room erupted in gasps and murmurs. I immediately went into police chief mode, approaching Karen calmly but authoritatively. Ms. Whitfield, please put your hands behind your back. You're under arrest for assault on a county official. Karen's eyes bulged in disbelief. You can't arrest me. I'm the HOA president. She protested as I calmly recited her Miranda rights. As I escorted Karen out of the clubhouse, the remaining board members hastily called for a vote. By unanimous decision, Karen was removed from her position as HOA president, effective immediately. You can't do this to me, she wailed as we passed the community bulletin board where her name and photo had been prominently displayed for years. Do you know how much I've done for this neighborhood? I've maintained our property values. I've preserved our community standards. The following morning, Karen was released on bail, facing misdemeanor assault charges and a restraining order preventing her from coming within 100 feet of my son or our home. As she emerged from the courthouse, she found a local news crew waiting. Apparently, the story of an HOA president arrested for assaulting a police chief's child was too juicy to ignore. Karen's face crumpled in horror as she realized her reputation in the community was irreparably damaged. No comment, she shrieked at the reporter, attempting to shield her face with her designer handbag. But it was too late. The camera caught every second of her meltdown, ensuring that Karen's reign of HOA terror would be remembered not for her dedication to earth tones, but for her spectacular fall from power.